All right, welcome back to Off the Clock. And no, I am not Sean, but I am that other guy. Hey, this is Marshall, and I have brought in a special guest. This is Rob Schruefer, because, well, you know, it's a great day to be alive, not having the flu and not having a sickness like Sean has, as many other people around the country and around the world, I guess, through the North America continent. It's like the flu's everywhere now, and people are sick. It is what it is. It's February. That's what happens. But instead of punting the week, I wanted to bring up a question, and there was a question that was asked to me on the Pints of Polishing podcast episode, and it's about that word scale. You know, how do you grow? How do you make it? How do you get there? And in particularly the question was, how do we start to go from technician to being, selling, and not working on the cars as much? So I don't know if that, I sent you that text. It's not exactly the most, I think I know what he means, right? Like going from technician to being the person that's selling and then to, not working on the cars as much. That really is like the big question that everybody wants to know. How do I get started? And then how do I make it? Right? And you can define make it on however you want, right? Like making it for some people really is just staying self-employed. I've talked about how my dad, he would always introduce himself as Marshall Hill Sr., right? And he works for Edward Jones, and he was self-employed, right? Like it's what those people did. If you were with Edward Jones and you were selling finance for them, you would introduce yourself as self-employed. You didn't really have a team. You weren't somebody that was trying to grow this whole empire, right? You weren't trying to grow this whole big thing. You were just a guy selling financial advice to other people. So he was always self-employed. As I grew up always thinking that way. As I got into the business, I was self-employed. I didn't ever do very well at growing a team. Not so great at it.
There's always advantages. There's always advantages to not having people. Some days I wish it was just me.
There's where a lot of people that, they give pushback and go, hey, we don't want to grow. We're happy being where we're at. What are the advantages of staying self-employed instead of growing a team?
Well, employees are a pain in the ass. Just generally speaking, the more people you have, the bigger problems you're going to have. You come in every day and you know what's in front of you, you know what you have to do, and you can go home. There's not as many fires to put out. There's not as many other personal issues that you have to deal with day in and day out.
How many team members do you have now?
A little over 100.
A little over 100 team members. And when did you get started?
2004. I started in June of 2004.
2004. So you're 22 years in.
Yep, just me and a friend and a beater old truck that we bought and just gave it a go.
There's so many of us like that, right? Like whether we had a partner at the early parts or, for me, it was just in my rodeo because that's what I drove when I got out of college. And I was in my first job and jumped out of my first job and just started cleaning cars, right? Like most of us all have that kind of some type of put our boots on and get after it story. It's the beauty of our industry. I think it's part of what makes where anybody can come in, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I think there's a low level of entry to join, and it's a lot like landscaping too. It doesn't cost a lot to get into it, but if you work hard and you do the things you're supposed to, you can grow the business to whatever you want it to be.
Now, the growing of the business is where most people have the difficulty, right? Like, as you could see in this question, as most people watch, this is a marketing podcast, and most people you find in groups, the difficulty is always the grow. So many of us love to use that word out here grinding. Well, grinding is staying still. Growing is different, right? It's growing that is the difficult part. So when you first thought of, hey, I need to grow, do you think that was innately into who you are, or did you have to learn that?
No, I think I was meant to run a business. That's just kind of how I've always felt, and I picked detailing. So, when I started, I didn't know a whole lot about detailing, and I got it going, And then as I was detailing, I learned how to detail, and I knew that I was going to have employees and grow a team. When I would come home at the end of the day and have to lay on my back and stretch my back out. I'm in my 20s and my back is killing me every night. And I'm just like, I'm not sure I can spend the rest of my life bent over in cars like this.
That was why you wanted to get team members.
Yeah, that I knew I didn't want to detail cars anymore.
You know, some of us get into a problem. I want to pick your brain on this. Is, you know, we build this, you know, these big giant packages and these you know, very intrinsic things to, you know, so we can do these 2-step corrections. What used to be 4 steps, you know, like remember those days when you and I first met, 2015, 16, and people were like, yeah, we did 4 or 5-step corrections. Yeah. You know, we would brag about
8 hours on this car.
Exactly.
What'd you make? Like $500. I'm like, well, you're an idiot.
You're an idiot, right? Like, but that's part of trying to climb. When we asked this question on our podcast, my partner Nick talked about simplification. Like, many of us probably, if we're going to bring team members in, we need to simplify what we're doing so that they can learn something also very easy and not very difficult. Is that what you did, or did you already start with simple packages?
Well, when we started, we had a basic wash, an express detail, and a full detail. You know, that's kind of where we started. You could add on some stuff, but what I did was I tried to standardize everything. Like, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it. Because I was just mobile to start, I taught the person that I wanted to have get going. Once I felt they were good enough, I put them with someone, and then I got another truck, and then I did it again, and I just kept replicating that until I was up, you know, to 10 trucks.
Your story is also, you didn't really take much and do much with, right? Like, you just kept that reinvestment.
Yeah, I bartended and waited tables at night for the first 5 years. I didn't take anything out of the business. I mean, luckily I was in my, you know, early to mid 20s, so I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. There was an advantage to that to me because I didn't need all the money that the company was making. That I was able to take what I was making and reinvest it into the business, and then do bartending at night and use that money to live. Although it made for long days.
When you have somebody that goes reinvest, what does that mean? What do I reinvest into? What am I supposed to buy? What am I supposed to do? Is that more training? Is that more tools?
I used it to train new people and buy new trucks. Like, there was a point that I was adding another unit a year, and I was trying to, you know, what I was learning. I wasn't learning new detailing techniques. I was learning new marketing techniques. You know, like when AdWords started, and, you know, the early days of websites and stuff like that. You know, I was trying to be in front of all that so that my business was found as people were looking, and it was successful.
It was a fascinating time, right? When the early people building websites, it was a lot of fun. You mentioned Google AdWords. Most people probably don't know what that is anymore. I don't know if it's still a thing that, you know, they've simplified it so much. You want to stay with that word. Google's really made it, you know, different. Those early days, you know, some of the stuff I used to do was building websites to do that. You know, go sell some thing on Amazon, right? That's an easy thing to do. But before then, it was just click of links, and it wasn't like now, you know, bottles of stuff. Then it was just courses. People would go search, how do I, you know, get rid of acne? And you could sell, you know, this clickbait basically, and people would go and click onto it, and they'd follow this link. Same as the stuff, but those were the early days of it. It was fascinating. It was a lot of fun. I had to get out of it when Google kept, I think Google Panda. I think that was the one it was. There was some Google, like they just kept doing all their, and then you had to go redo everything. And I was like,
yeah. Even still to us, you know, I've been doing this 20 years, and every year they change it, and then they call us up and they're like, oh, you have to change this or you have to change that. It's pretty obnoxious.
It's very obnoxious, but marketing, if we're going to quote unquote scale, if we're going to think of bringing in a team members, right? So you're basically saying some things we have to do. Let's go first. You're going to have simple packages, right? Like, you're going to have to make it so that anybody that's, whether it's your marketing or the team members that you're coming to train, has to be very simple for your customers and your employees.
Yeah, easy to understand, easy to do. Like most people don't want paint correction. Like day to day, in and out detailing customers aren't actually after paint correction.
You think there's been a difference in what detailing is now today than what it was 20 years ago, 15 years? Like when you say detailing, for when I think of it, when you and I, right? For me, it was 2002. Detailing for me was a mini detail, and people still considered it a detail. I really think people think a mini detail now, they call it a car wash, and we don't want to car wash.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there's money in all of it. You just have to know your market. If you're, there's a market for the boutique, really high end, expensive paint corrections, coatings, PPF. Those shops too. That's not the niche that I operate in, but they exist.
99% of the places don't have that, right? Like
no, most don't.
most don't.
But there's this myth on the internet that like that's how you make it when you've got when you're doing Ferraris and all this kind of fancy stuff that's how you've made it as a detailer. But that's not really the case at all. I don't do too many Ferraris. That's not what we do. We do everyday drivers. That's our market, and that's what we market to, and we price to it, we market to it, and we do it well.
But people in my area, Rob, that's what you're going to hear from every single person in every single town, right? Like everybody seems to always complain about the people in their area. What did you solve that problem by not having crazy expensive packages and trying to focus on all the crazy stuff? Is that how you got it?
If people wanted to do it, we would do it, but that's just not who I marketed to. You have to pick who's your demographic here. There's a hell of a lot more minivans and Accords out there than there are Ferraris and Lamborghinis. So, you can speak to those people much easier. You can relate to them. Whereas if you're talking about higher end packages, the cost, the money per vehicle is higher, but they're much more difficult to attain.
Now there's a couple guys that just put out a video recently. It was a couple weeks ago, and you'll know them. I'm not going to call them out by name because it's not really to pick on them. But they're two older detailers. One's like he's like, listen, I'm the oldest guy around, right? Like, and he probably is. He's around at all the expos. Super nice guy, right? Like I love the guy, right? It's not about that. But they put out a video, and he was basically saying, well, the industry's just changed away from us. We just can't get these $1,500 details anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
I make my living at $300 a pop. So,
Well, what do you charge, right? There's one of those questions. What are your packages, and what do you charge?
For our standard detail, it's in the $300 range. To come out
Standard
to
detail is what?
Wash, light clay bar, polish, wax. Just maybe like an all-in-one, like a once-over, vacuum, spot shampoo. Clean the plastics, clean the leather. I'm not getting into the paint. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not removing bio. I'm just making the car look nicer.
I would have said that's a detail. I think there's some people that go, now that's just cleaning the car.
Yeah, it's clean. I'm not taking the seats out. I'm not taking the car apart. I'll do it if you want to pay for it, but most people don't care. Like that's not. We as detailers sometimes get stuck on what we want to do, and we actually completely ignore what the customer actually wants. Does the customer give a shit if I took their seat out and cleaned the rails underneath the seat? No, they don't care about that. Is the bolt that connects the seat to the floor clean? Do they care? No, they don't give a shit. So why do I care? I'm not charging them to do it. They're not asking me to do it. Why wouldn't I market to them at the price point that they want, doing the services that are important to them?
How'd you find that out? The price point that they want and the services that they are wanting.
Time. It takes time, and over time the prices have all come up as the cost of doing business has come up. My average detailer when I started made $8 an hour. Now they make $25. And that's the cost of just the way things are. Also, I tend to pay higher now because it keeps my turnover low. I haven't, on the mobile side, I haven't hired people in years. It just saves me the trouble of having to do it. If you pay them well and treat them well and train them well, they stay.
Okay. What do you think most quote unquote detailers, if they bring somebody in, what do you think they pay them?
$15 to $17 an hour.
That'd be nice. That'd be cool if that. I think it's less.
But,
I
but
think
in
they're
my
still down
area,
at $10 to $12.
you can get a job at McDonald's for $15 an hour. So, if I want them, this is a front-facing job. I expect them to be presentable, do a good job, upsell my services. Like, I have to pay to get that employee. If I'm paying minimum wage and I have a transit employee, the amount of time I'm spending constantly retraining them and redoing everything every 6 months because I'm losing people it's a pain in the ass.
So first of all, you got to simplify the packages, right? You got to figure out then what the customers are wanting and price point it to them. And you mentioned something there about training. How do you train somebody? I mean, do you just say, hey, follow me, and then you have them do a car and you just tell them, oh no, you missed that spot, and you got to sit there for 2 days while you missed that spot, no, you missed that spot?
Over the years, we've done a lot of different things. We've had training guides, whole training programs in place. We have, somebody on our staff who's in charge of training up the new people. But again, because I don't have a lot of turnover, I actually don't have to spend a lot of time training people to do it. We're looking at hiring a couple coming into the spring here, so I'm going to have to do it again. And it's going to be one of those things where we've created our operations. I was telling you before, we created this app that helps my employees with our training program that really allows them to learn on their own, because you can only listen to somebody telling you something all the time. Sometimes you have to take it in, learn the process, and then go from there.
If I didn't have
do a good job too.
Here's a great idea. If I didn't have an app, and I know you're gonna share about yours here in a second, which is pretty cool, and I'm gonna ask you some questions. If I didn't have that, I at least have a phone, and I can record myself doing some things, and then I have this really cool thing called the internet. And if I go to Google, I can go use one of their things called YouTube, and you know what? I can go put all those videos on YouTube and then put the links into a notes section. And then I can show somebody links, and here, you got a question about this? Here's a link. Here's a link.
That's what we have videos. We use Google Drive.
Rob,
so it's all internal.
That's extra work.
Yeah. You want, but I also want everyone to do a good and standard job.
You're right, but my point was going to go, here's another, right? I'm just going to keep going down less, because people go, how do I scale? There's not an answer. There's like 500. So each time you say one, I'm going to go, there's one. There's another answer, right? Like one of those answers is I got to work, then I got to work more, and then there's more work on top of that work. And then to alleviate myself from this work, I got to work even more over here, right? You basically are saying, in order to help train your people, we basically just put out a whole nother work section for us to do that's going to take 15 to 20 hours to build, maybe, if not more.
Way longer. I mean, it took me years to write my training guide. It was like, I remember I had it with me at the Mobile Text one time. It was like that thick. With all of our products, all of our services, all the breakdowns, step-by-step guides, everything. I mean, it took me years to make it. And then we converted it all digital, and then it was all available to each one of our employees through their Google Drive.
So when you say that you felt like you were just sort of like born into owning a business, did that thought process of what you just described, of I went from here to here and was that natural, or did you go study that from somebody?
No, you learn. That's one of the reasons I like going to like Mobile Tech and SEMA and shows like that, because you can actually meet people and pick their brain and find out what they're doing. That might work for me. That might not work for me. Those kind of things that I'm always talking to people and finding out what they're doing and what might work for me, because we're not all the same. Nobody's similar.
Who'd you talk to?
Who do I talk to? I mean, everybody. Literally.
Oh, I mean, it's a great question.
You, DJ. I remember I used to spend a lot of time with you guys. Just sitting around shooting the shit and trying to figure out what's best.
But there's detailers that didn't go. I mean, you mentioned some people, and I didn't want to say those were really great people to talk to, but I will. I mean, since you mentioned, but they don't have those people, do they? Right,
well,
but so is a question
you can
about
have them if you've got to, you got to go out and find them.
Let's add another answer, huh? In order to grow, you've got to build this, in a sense, ecosystem of people to bounce ideas back and forth off to.
I know sometimes you're not a fan, but the IDA was that for me. I was able to use that as my network to bring together all of these people that I knew that I could, contacts in my phone that I could call and say, hey, I'm having this problem. Call Jason Rose and be like, dude, I can't get this out of my paint. I mean, who's better to ask a question like that? When you really need help and you can build a network of people that that are in your community, I think it's a really important part of being
community.
A part of it.
So if we can't get Jason Rose's number, right, who do we talk, right? Like, I'm still going to go back to that question, right? Like, I'm with you. They could join the IDA, and there are a few people there that could offer them tangible advice. There are there. If we go another option, who do we talk to? This is the difficult part, right? Like, it's so difficult to go into YouTube and really understand if these people know what they're talking about, or they're just like some of the other people that they're talking heads and they do a really great job at marketing, right? They do a really great job of letting you think that they know something, but they don't really know because they haven't run a business, right? They actually have never brought in a teammate and brought in 4 or 5, brought in 6, had 10, right? I think the most I got to was 15. Nowhere 100, right? Like, nowhere 100. And when I say I wasn't good at managing people, I found I was better at other things. I was much better at marketing, right? Like, that's how you found me, right? Like, that's how other people found me in the world. I marketed of, hey, we should meet each other, right? Like, let's have a beer, let's hang out, right? Like, it's very difficult, though, if I'm just somebody that's in the business, whether 3 months or 3 years, to go, who do I talk to bounce ideas? And I go, I want to throw this idea out to you, Rob. Maybe we don't talk to other detailers. Maybe we talk to just people that own businesses.
That is just as important as talking to detailers, in my opinion, because you are, especially when you're starting, you're going to have detailing related questions. If you want your detailing company to be successful, you actually have to be able to detail a car properly. Once you get that down, then you can grow your business from there. And that's when you start talking. You can take online courses, sometimes the colleges offer things for free. You can take those sort of courses. And,
like what?
Like at a community college, you can take like Business 101. Sometimes they have these like, local classes that you can take that are like literally like free or like $25. It's just a couple of hours, but it's a seminar that you can use to learn what you need to learn.
Did you ever get into, I mean, we joked yesterday and we laughed about, on our Pints of Polishing about MLMs and different stuff. Like, but I did a journey. You didn't, but I did. I mean, so I didn't know selling. I didn't know any of that stuff. MLMs can teach you a lot. They can teach you a lot. Do what?
You sold LuLaRoe? The spandex?
No, it was shakes and it was all different stuff. But, as a real young kid, when I was still working on my master's, I was down in Texas. I got into that Amway.
Oh, I worked for
massive, right?
I don't know if you count that. Like, I went to the interview and tried to sell some knives, and then I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm not doing powerhouse.
I wanted in just to learn because you mentioned learn, and that, and like I've questioned too. Was I just a natural getting into this, or did I fall into it and figure it out? Like, if we're going to grow and we're going to scale, some of us need to realize, is this natural for us, and what natural things have we kind of walked ourselves into? And as we've grown and as we've kind of sustained ourselves for 3 months or 3 years, whichever you find yourself, you're natural at something. You're naturally good at some things and not naturally good at other things. The things that I wasn't, I'm not a good salesman. I still say that publicly. I'll still say that if you're a better marketer, you don't have to be great at sales. But if you're not great at marketing, you better be good at sales. They're two different things.
And one of the things that most detailers struggle with is like the business side and the detailing side. They're a lot of these guys get into this. They're good. They're really good detailers. They're good blue collar. I'm gonna clean the shit out of this car, but they actually don't know anything about detailing. I mean, not detailing, about running the business side of things, and they never learn. They just think if I'm a great detailer, that's gonna come, and it doesn't come. You have to put in the time, and you have to learn how to do it properly.
Even you've worked 50 hours, 60 hours in the actual labor part, there comes the OT, right? There comes the other stuff that you got to do. After the clock's done, there's many things that have to be done. We say that this is the part where it differentiates so many of us, is because you can, as you mentioned, be great at the detailing. And you're right. Like, a lot of people might not be educated enough, but you could put in the time, you could put in the work. So we can definitely hit that as one of these other spots of how do I grow, right? How do I scale? Well, the way you do it is always going to be putting in more work than you think you ever should do.
Yeah, and to me, one of the things I didn't want to do was like run the business. When I first started, I was putting in a lot of time. Now, I go on vacation, the business still runs. I'm sick, the business still runs. I don't feel like going in today, the business still runs and makes money. Like when you're a single person or running a small business, that doesn't happen. You can't go to Mobile Tech or SEMA and miss 4 or 5 days of work and still make any money. You have to be able to have the team in place to continue to work and know that everything's going to be okay when you're not there.
When you decided to bring in the second van, then there was the third van. How excited were you? Were you like stressed and nervous?
Yeah,
and like
you always worry. I had a thing that once I was booked 2 weeks out, that's when I decided that I was going to add another truck. So I would do that because once you get by a week or so, people tend not to wait. They're like, I'll just call somebody else. And then, I lose them. So what I decided to do was I was never going to get past 2 weeks out. And as soon as I got to 2 weeks, I added another truck.
Is that the number?
That was for me.
What about today?
I don't know. Again, it depends on your business. Now we don't really get 2 weeks out because we have so many options, the shops and we just don't get that far. We get a couple of days, so it's not really
So let everybody know where you're at, how many locations, and how many mobile units you have.
Well, we've got at this
point, where are you at?
So this year, what's funny is this year, and I'll bring this up. We actually rolled back a little bit to make more. I'm making more money now doing less things. With the dealerships and some of the trucks and stuff, we've actually rolled them back. So I think right now we're running 6 or 7 trucks. It's also wintertime. So that plays into it too. And then we've dropped a lot of the dealerships just because.
Location?
I'm sorry, what?
Where are you at?
Where am I at?
Yeah.
Oh, in Maryland.
There you go. Thank you. That's what I was trying to get, so people could know where you're at, like in Maryland. I was going to say Baltimore.
Yeah, we're just outside Baltimore.
Yeah. I visited you, and we had a fun little. I don't think you came to the training. You didn't get certified, but we used your facility,
Yeah,
So
you used my Frederick shop for it. I'm like, I didn't get the training, but you used my shop.
no, but I joke with Nick about it, my partner, because he came to when I did one in Vegas. I did it at Theo's shop, and Nick came and stopped by. So I always talk about how he got certified because he took a picture with us and everything. It's great. So for me, a lot of the marketing was to come up and go to different places and train people and do stuff. It was great being up there in Baltimore. It's way different than here. People are people whether they're there or they're here. When you think of the people that we should hire, how do you find them? And what do you think about the type of person right? Let's get into some of that stuff, which I understand this is not always like, I don't know what you want to say, like, what's that, like, not friendly of like not, okay, anyway, just go for it. Don't beat around the bush. I mean, we know we can't have large people. That was one for me. If somebody came in and interviewed and they were large, I was like, listen, you can't get in the back of this Honda Civic and clean that back glass. So you're gone, right? Like there are some things we can't legally say that we're discriminating against.
Yeah, you gotta be careful there. But one of the things that I tend to look for is a little bit older of a person who has some responsibilities, kids, bills, that they can't just up and leave. If you hire a kid that's 18 years old and still living with his parents' house, if he doesn't come to work, oh well, if he gets fired, I'll get another job. There's no responsibility there. So making sure that you hire people that actually have the need for the job is always important. You want those people to want to come to work and to need to come to work, because if they can't afford to lose the job, they're going to do everything they can to keep it.
Do you hire specifically for, whether you said dealership, and my bad, I cut you off earlier. How many dealerships do you have?
At this point, not too many. We do some pickup work for dealerships, but I got out of being in dealerships every day because they're just not moving enough cars, and they still want to pay prices from 20 years ago. So what used to be a larger portion of my business, and that's something that you learn as a business person. I walked away from it. It wasn't making money. So I make more now not doing it. So I took what off the top line, and it added significantly to the bottom line.
So no more dealerships, but
not day to day where we were like embedded in the dealership.
Yeah, it used to be, and I still love that model. I do.
If you can make it work, but the problem is if I'm paying people $20+ an hour, they want 3 people there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and they sold 3 cars all day. It's not profitable. I was turning money over trying to add to the top of the line, trying to get to reach that 5 million number. And I was just like, what am I doing? I'm turning money over. I'm actually spending more than I'm making.
All right, so you dump the dealerships.
How many? The auctions do well for me, though.
The auctions do well? How many auctions do you have?
I say 1.5. We have one that we're in all the time and another one that we do additional work for.
Well, auctions, that's not detailing.
You can call it what you want. It's not a detail like you would think of a detail, but, it's profitable.
Fuck yeah, it is.
That's what I care about. These people, they're not looking for a detail. I'm taking the trash out, I'm vacuuming the floor, I'm making it presentable, and I'm washing it, and I'm turning it out the door.
You're cleaning it.
Yes. I tell stories one time because we keep track of VINs and stuff in cars. I did a car 3 times. I did it when it came to auction as a repo. We did it. I did it when it showed up at my dealership again. And then when the customer bought it, we did it on the retail side. 3 different levels of detail, 3 different price points, same customer.
So that maybe that's the way to answer it. For those of us that are hearing it, they're like, man, but I'm a detailer. Like, maybe we just say there's levels. Maybe that's get some of us off the hook. Like, it does. I know there's so many of us that are hung up. I myself, like, people would laugh. $25, $15 for a hand wash, $25 for a wash and vac is what I used to charge.
My detail was $100.
I've never understood why people got so hung up in what they like. They were your detailer? I'm like, sure. I mean, my company is called Wave Washing, right?
I had customers that they were so used to that. We'd come out and wash this guy's car every week for 10 years at $25. And I remember just having a conversation with him. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm paying to wash your car every day. I want to do it. I know that you helped me build my business, but I cannot financially do this anymore. For me to come, it has to be 100, and that doesn't make sense for you. So I totally understand that this isn't an arrangement that can work anymore, and I really value you as a customer. He still brings us, when he gets new cars, we'll do a ceramic coating on it, or if it gets extra dirty, we'll still detail it. We can't do it. We can't come to your house for $25.
Yeah, no, I didn't go to their house. I set up at Ultimate Electronics and big, here is called Warm Place. It's our Twin Towers, right? Like where most of the people go and do business, right? So that's where I did it at. I was more the volume, which made sense of why I went into owning a car wash. I love this conversation because we always want to say, how do I scale my detailing business? What have we said that's so much detailing over the past 40 minutes that the average quote unquote detailer is going to say? No. So many people that are in the Facebook groups that we laugh at, well, that's where most of the market is in simple cleanings. We almost frown upon or think that we're not justified enough. And, my people here won't pay. And, blah, blah, blah. Man, what do you think? $75? I mean, the people that we still do the same things that we used to do for 50 are paying 100, right? We just go every weekend, clean a couple cars, and it's $100 a pop. It's not a big problem. We don't showcase a massive amount of talent, but it makes money every single week,
that's what matters. There's no, if you look at detailing forums, it's all about, who did what for how long and all that kind of nonsense. None of that matters. You can teach anybody to detail a car. Some of these guys think they're above everybody, but you give me enough time and I'll teach somebody how to detail a car.
I think you and Sean would really link up on that, right? Because he owns a car wash, a dealership, and and we've always struggled with curious of why people won't just simply clean a car. Like, what is your package? What is your mini detail package?
Like an express detail? Yeah. Wash, wax, vacuum, wipe down the plastics.
You said earlier, but just want people to hear it again.
Yeah, that's simple.
Pretty easy.
Simple. $150. I'm in and out in 30 to 40 minutes.
When you think of marketing,
is the amount of time that you spend working on a car to the amount of money that you make. Like you should be in the $125 an hour range. And that's who gives a shit what actual service you're performing at that cost.
It's easier to market. That's what I was about to say, right? Like when you think of marketing and you think of scaling and growing and you think of that and the package and that, so much easier. Right? Like, what's the difficulty though? Is it because what? Like, what's the hang up? Why don't people do that?
Because I don't think they have the business acumen of it, and I think that's where I've always said for 20 years that where people fall behind is they don't bother to learn the business of detailing. They think that I can win the paint Olympics at Mobile Tech, so I'm the world's greatest detailer. Well, I don't give a shit about that. I don't even enter that. That doesn't matter to me at all. What do I care if I'm not the best detailer? I don't detail cars anymore. I'm not the best detailer in my company. I'm not even close. But that's not my job. My job is to make sure that the cars come in and the business runs smoothly. That's my job every day. I pay people to detail the cars.
So we're starting, and then we're growing and we're scaling. if you could put your past, all of it into your final closing thoughts, and then tell people about your app. Like, what do you think people, if like, hey, to get you to go from 0 to 22, 24, 30 years, what do you need? Like, just your final thoughts, and then talk about your app.
I think you need to take the time to learn. You're always learning. Like we talked about it, like mobile tech. There's for 2 days there's entire classes that you can go and listen in to people. I've spoken at mobile tech for years. You can go and listen to people who've been doing it a really long time. There's nothing wrong with being new in the industry and not knowing anything. Every single person in this industry has been there before. But the ones who are successful actually take the time to listen to people, to pull whatever nuggets they can out of those classes, and to continue to learn. And to tie it back into the Detailer app, which is an app that we use for AI that we created. Basically, we took all of the detailing knowledge that we've learned in 20 years and put it into this and used it for AI that our staff uses. So it's a training tool for us. So like I told you on the phone before, when somebody has a problem, I ask them to use that first. So it doesn't replace training, but it's a good training tool. And then after a while, we decided, like, what, maybe other detailers would actually use this. So if you're new in the industry and it costs you $5 once to buy this app, and it's literally like asking me a question. Anytime you want, you type it in, and and it will respond with everything that I know about detailing. That's that's where you learn how to do these things. You don't need to spend a lot of money. You just have to spend the time to figure these things out and learn from people who've been through it, who've already forged the way for you. You can ride their coattails a little bit. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. I didn't invent detailing. I just took what I could learn, and I built on it from there, and built what I wanted to build out of a business.
Love it. And for people that wonder why I had you on, well, hopefully they can go back and go, 100 team members? Like, yeah, there's probably a lot, Rob knows. And you've been in it quite a long time.
You learn a long time. I mean, it was funny at Mobile Tech this year. I was kind of joking around with some of the people. There's like this line of all the guys who've done it a really long time and have been around for decades. Then there's not so much in the middle, and then there's all these new guys who start, because, as we talked about before, the entry price is really low.
Well, but it's always a continual turnover too.
Yeah, they get in and they don't put in the time or the money to figure out what they want to do as a business. They don't learn how to actually create a business. They think, I'll just take this detailing course and from my favorite detailer, and he'll teach me everything I need to know, and I'm going to be successful. But the reality of it is that's not how that really works.
No. Sean and I talk about that continual cycle and that continual turnover, because both of us love to watch nature. And, anytime I got to have a great opportunity out of college to go to Africa and go on safaris, right? And, there's this migration that happens. You could actually see the analogy of the migration with, economy. And there's this growth, and then we've got to turn and go find the new place, right? Migration seems to always be, we've been hanging out here, and now we got to go over to here because whatever, right? Whether that's birds, whether that's wildebeest, whether that, right? Fill in the blank. There's always seems to be in nature this movement from here to there on a regular basis. With us in business,
technology is, to me, that migration. I always try to stay up. I remember when I first started going to mobile tech, like, there weren't CRMs that I really liked, so I made my own. Eventually I gave up on it because everybody else caught up. But like, there was nothing for the detailing industry as far as CRM. So, I've tried to ride that wave for a long time. Now it's AI, so we're trying to use that wave. And, one of the things we're doing with detailing is we're building it into CRMs too, so that your staff, our sales staff uses it. So like when you call up a business, you're asking the receptionist questions sometimes that they don't know the answer to. Well, now our receptionist can literally just enter it in, get like she just went into my office and asked me the answer, and now can speak more formally and more knowledgeably to someone over the phone. Mm-hmm. It actually is extremely effective.
In each migration, there's people that excel. They get through the river of the crocodiles, and then there's some that get through the river, but then the lion's waiting right there, and they get eaten, right? Like, there's always people that make it, and there's always people that don't.
Well, you can't stay stagnant. You always have to be looking for the next. What's the next thing going to be? How can I take whatever's coming along next and use it to my advantage?
Yeah. Where do people find you, Rob, if they want to reach out to you on social media?
I'm older, so I just have Facebook. I don't use Instagram too much, but Rob Schruefer at Facebook, or onspotdetailing.com is my website. You can reach me through there if you send messages through there. I'm at a lot of the shows. I try to be active in the detailing community because to me, this detailing community gave me my life. It's my industry. So I do what I can to keep it up and to continue to do everything I can to improve the industry as a whole.
Yeah, love it. I think the analogy I used to always say was, as the tide rises, so do all the ships. Right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just keep rising the tide, and hey, everybody that keeps making it through the migration, here we go. Right?
The more standards we can have, the more we are recognized as an actual service industry like mechanics. The more that we're recognized in that way, the better off that we all are.
Man, I wish you wouldn't have said that, because we're 46 minutes in, and I said we weren't going to go for 2 hours. That's a whole can of worms right there that you just brought up. I'm not going to take that bait, Rob. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to dive into that. I'm not going to do it. Maybe another episode, maybe. All right, guys, thanks everybody for listening. Reach out to Rob if you'd love to, and if not, we'll see you inside of the OrbisX Facebook group. Sean, hope you're feeling better, and thanks for the opportunity to have a great discussion. For those of us that want to grow, that want to scale, that want to move on, we don't want to stay the same. We want to journey. We want to continue to grow. We know we have to bring people in. We can look around at every business out there, whether that's online or whether that's we walk into a local place. Every single business struggles with employees, struggles with hiring, struggles with answering the questions. So, Rob, thanks so much, man. Thanks for taking an hour out of your time so that people here could get a glimpse of, well, if I want to grow, what do I need to do? Shit, there's 50,000 things you got to do, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no one answer, but
ain't no one answer.
Find people that know and ask them. They'll help you.
Love it. All right, we'll see everybody next time.